All right, so I'm here today with Michele, Dr. Michele, that is, who is a naturopathic doctor, physician, as well as a midwife who is practicing in Hawaii, correct?
The Maui
Maui,
now.
Maui, yeah. I guess I
Mhm.
should, yeah. So within the whole spectrum of Hawaii, but Maui,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Licensed in on Hawaii, practicing
Nice,
in Maui.
nice. So Michele helped us when we had, I mean, she helps us a lot with all our babies, but she helped us big time when we had my wife gave birth to our twin girls at home about three years and a month ago.
Mhm.
She was huge support, and gave us a lot of confidence that yeah, that's totally doable. That it's a natural process. We'd already had two babies at home, and then and we'd had our first child in the hospital. And so yeah, but having twins at home is kind of like, not the normal thing a lot of times. But given that God gave my wife the capacity to have twins in her, there's no doubt God gave her the capacity to birth those twins naturally as well. And Michele is just a huge support in uh, helping us have the confidence that, yeah, this is gonna be okay. So that was awesome, Michele. We really appreciate that.
That was
But
awesome for me too. Thank you.
so yeah, can you give a quick, just like what got you going into midwifery or naturopathic medicine? What was your impetus there?
So when I was a kid, I grew up in the 80s and I watched Little House on the Prairie. My parents, we were so really good about letting us watch TV that made sense. I feel like we had some cartoons and Little House on the Prairie back then. That was such a good TV.
Yeah.
Some happy days in there. No. Okay. So anyway, Dr. Baker on Little House on the Prairie was always, to me, my favorite part of the character. Like if he wasn't on an episode, I was kind of bummed because I loved how he would go outside the village. He would even go out of town. He would go down bumpy roads, and babies would come out at people's homes, right? And if there was a sickness, he would go get like a root or an herb or something, some kind of like, he would make the medicine and he would heal people. And I just knew I was like, this is amazing. And when I found out later in life, there kind of still is this, then I started to, there's that time when you're in your teenager years where you're eating Doritos and your friends I had a teenage friend who got, pregnant in like their 20s, and I was living in Colorado and she went and had her baby in a hospital. And and it was kind of my first birth now in life, really, that was invited to. And we drove so hard and fast, far, like 8 hours away to get there. And we missed it, but I got there right at the end. And I remember looking in her eyes and saying, well, how'd it go? You had the baby. And she said, well, it was great, but they did give me Demerol. And I always thought to myself, like, wow, they had no idea who they were talking to. This is like the toughest nails chick ever. She could have done it without Demerol, but they offered it to her. And when you're 20 years old and they offer you something and you're like, okay, well, the doctor said I could have it, so I'll have it. And that really got me thinking on like the truth about medicine right there.
Wow. And so then you went, so did you go to midwifery first? Did you go to naturopathic school first?
So I went to several naturopathic school interviews. I went to one on the East Coast called University of Bridgeport. And they said, okay, great. You got all your prereqs in, you're in, like school's going to start in September. This was back in 2000. And I was like, great, I can't wait till the midwifery program starts. When is that part? When do I get to that part? And they're like, no, we don't have that program here. It's either they really only have that program one more state in the United States, and it's in Washington. So we drove all the way from Connecticut to Washington. Like that was what we did when we got married, which was yesterday, 18 years ago.
Wow.
So 18 years ago, we drove to Seattle, and I got to that interview and they're like, we have a midwifery program here. You have to pass your basic science boards. You have to be admitted in medical school, and then you can be part of the midwifery program. And then they said in that interview, so why do you want to be in naturopathic school? I'm like, well, because I want to be a midwife. And they're like, well, just go down the street for 3 years. You could be a midwife. And I'm like, no, because then I won't be Dr. Baker. I won't be able to take care of them from the cradle to the grave. Like, midwifery is birth, but I've also been able to help people die, which is so similar to midwifery. You have to help them out of the hospital and into hospice, and you have to encourage their family to have faith in the dying process. It's very similar. It's unreal. And I also love the idea of of helping the baby after. I don't ever want my parents to think, okay, now we have to take it into the nurse practitioner for its shots, or we have to go into, I want them, if they want me, and I don't say this ever like on a website because I couldn't ever take care of everybody, right? But if they want to have a naturopathic physician watch their kid grow the way I do for my own kids, then I would do. I have 5 kids, by the way, too.
Awesome.
So I would just make sure I would be there for them. And those, even as a midwife can be, which I think is also specific, like to be able to call your doctor when you're scared, just like when you're pregnant and you're scared, right? To be able to call your doctor and say, hey, there's something up with my kid. Should I take them to the ER, or is it something I can just calm down about? I just love, in a way, midwifing them through parenthood too. Yeah. Because if I had someone to do that for me in those first year with the first kid, I feel like I could have been a little more calm. I wouldn't have jumped for Tylenol or Advil. I would have known, oh, there's a rhyme and reason to this illness in my child. This is how it should play out, and this is how I can calm down. Just like labor, this is how labor goes. These are the stages. If you know what labor is, then you're not going to be afraid of it, because okay, it's supposed to get harder before it gets over.
Yeah. So does it seem like the number of women out there that are choosing midwifery, or couples out there that are choosing midwifery, is that something like it's increasing, decreasing, about the same?
Well, it is interesting where I live. There, well, of course, probably anywhere there's the pandemic, and so that's making people think twice in many ways about what do they want to put into their body. If they were in a place where they're going to offer them things to put in their body, whether it's a swab up the nose, what's on that swab? Or is it a mask I have to put on my body and I can't breathe? Or are they going to offer me drugs when, if I was home and I wasn't offered drugs, would I be able to do it? It's like fasting and someone offering you a brownie,
Yeah.
You're hungry. And so you might eat that brownie, but you would ruin all those days of fasting.
Sure. Totally. So what do you, so say a woman comes to you, or a couple comes to you and like, hey, is it okay? Is it safe to do, birth at home? Is it like, do you have like tools? Do you, is it, what do you tell a person that, gives them the confidence, that, hey, one, I know what I'm doing. I've done this a few times before, and, that, their body knows what it's doing too. Like the female body knows the process that needs to happen. We didn't like figure out how to stick a baby inside of us. We just like the baby went from the cell to this full blown, 4, 5, 6, 7 pound child inside of a female. Anything you do particular to like, build confidence or assure them that what they're doing is, one, doable, and two, a safe thing to do?
Okay, first of all, I've learned from my greatest mentor, Suzanne Thompson, that, to walk in faith and not in fear. And to me, faith gets stronger because I have this medical background. The more information I can gather, and the more information you gather, whether you're becoming a midwife, then you can look at all the research about how home birth would be safer. And all of it says that. Just thinking about the concept of like, there's infection in the hospital. People have died in the gown that you're wearing. I mean, there's intervention, and they're looking for a problem because they have, God bless the idea that our hospital here does 350 deliveries a month, some months. I could never do that. It's amazing that they can do that. And so with that, they have to have guidelines of if this, then this. And this time limit is going to create us to get this bed available for the next person. I don't take on that many people. I don't ever have a crush and time limit. It's always just, if it's going on long, do I bring in an assistant to come and do heart tones while I take a nap? Or maybe it's going on so fast the assistant never made it because the baby just fell out. Or maybe I didn't even get there fast enough, but hey, I got there right after and I was able to deliver the placenta and control for bleeding, But with all of those scenarios comes the education of here's the stages of labor. And then this is how the baby gets out. Here's the path of least resistance. How can we create that mechanically? How can we teach a person to know so much about their body that they know the mechanics of their body and how to create the baby to drop out because there's no torque in their system and their alignment, right? And so that's part of the education that I help families understand in terms of the safety, because no one's gonna, in the OB world, no one's gonna give you more than 15 minutes an appointment. They're not gonna spend an hour to tell you about, hey, here's how to make your skin so optimal so that you don't tear, right? Have your gut be so strong, because if you have candida on your skin, it's not gonna hold together. So you have 9 months of pregnancy to make your gut so strong, right? To me, that adds another level of safety. Do you now need to, be sewn back together? Well, a midwife is really good at that too, so I'm trained well in they call it at Bastyr, the plastic surgery of the vagina. And even without my skill, I've even learned from women who don't know how to sew that they put seaweed paper on the vagina to put it back together. Because if you have enough confidence in the body to heal itself, you'll trust that, yes, there's going to be a level of soreness, but just like we've all gotten hurt in our mouth, it heals. We don't always go in and stitch it together. We can break it open inside and it'll go back together just from keeping our mouth shut. So there's a lot of the physiological processes of the body that if we can teach people that, just like we do as naturopathic physicians, hold on, first just trust your body's made to heal. And before you even heal, trust your body's made to do this. Just like when you're first sick, right? Like, and you have a child, like my 7-year-old just got sick recently and I had to tell him in his panic, I'm like, I know you feel so sick, but your body's made to get sick. You want to get sick. Just like you want labor to be strong. You want it to hurt. If it didn't get to those contractions where, oh my goodness, are they supposed to last for 2 minutes straight, women will say, and I'm like, oh, that's a good one. And in that moment, they're like, no, this is not a good one. But without ones like that, the baby doesn't come out. Versus I have seen labor patterns, rarely, but sometimes, where it's like, oh, never is getting started strong enough. Now where's the caution? Now where do I put up the concepts of, okay, if we need to, we can go to the hospital for help. Obviously, if we're going into the hospital, it's because it's nothing it's nothing we didn't try already at home, right? I try and warn my families, if we're going to the hospital, it's because they have an incredible surgical skill that they can get a baby out in 20 minutes. And they're great at it. But we're not going there for natural delivery. So when they offer you Pitocin and they offer you an epidural, you just say, no, I'm here for the C-section, because we already got through everything in the world at home without Pitocin, without epidural, and we came to a dead end. Normally, rarely are those tools used. And then there's a time and a place for every tool. There's a time when an epidural is needed because there's so much emotional trauma for what happened once in that in that area. And so now we notice that maybe that didn't come up. Maybe during all the prenatal visits, I didn't really dig deep enough to say, hey, have you been traumatized? Do you have sexual trauma? Do we need to work through this with a counselor, a referral? Because all those things come up in labor. And really, having that baby come out is what's between the ears, or how we can let what's between the ears get away and trust in our body and have our faith that we can get through it.
Good. That's good. So when was the last baby you delivered? How long ago was that?
I think it was one after the last time we were going to meet, which was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. This one was great. It was nearby in a beautiful town called Paia. And this woman had her first home birth, but she had tried for home birth, and her last one got transferred to the hospital. And the one before that was a hospital birth because the baby was early. Gotcha. So this was her first baby. They set up the water tub and she got to actually get in it this time. I really tried hard to just let her and her husband do it themselves. So her husband got into the tub and he held her on top of him. So it's almost like she was sitting on him in a way to have the baby.
Gotcha.
Together they felt those contractions. Together they felt the baby come. It's really interesting. Every dad and every family will do it differently. I see people on the outside of the tub, on the inside of the tub. I think when you have that partner in there that believes in you when you don't believe in yourself, then you have that perfect dance of, okay, but he knows I can do it. And he knows me well because we did this together. So let's do this together. Let's get this out together. That's
good. That's really good. So do you have like a like top 5 things or top 2 things, 3 things you tell or you recommend to like almost every woman that you're going to help support through the labor process, or like a little checklist for them?
You know, one of the really important things that I like to tell people is we live in this environment that we have to figure out how to filter from our placenta and our cord blood and our breast milk, right? These are 3 things that we're passing on to our kids, and if we could keep them as contaminant free as possible, why don't we try that, right? We would filter our water. We wouldn't drink tap water. We know that, right? So let's see how we can make ourselves as clean as possible. Ideally, detox before you get pregnant, right? Create an awesome exercise routine for yourself, just so you're in the rhythm of it before you get pregnant. Now, if you're pregnant and you didn't do any of those things, it's not too late. Just do the best you can. So as soon as you find out chlorella paranoidosa, so broken cell wall organic chlorella, you can do chlorella vulgaris. There's several companies that make it. I work for BioPure, so I always say theirs because I know it's organic. But you know, there's even a Sun Foods one at the health food store, but I realize it's not organic. So really trying to make sure you have organic chlorella, because it's a binder, and they've done studies on it, and they call them chlorella babies. And they've looked at like the cord blood and the breast milk, and they've noticed that if you have the chlorella in pregnancy, or even as a new baby, they just start to eat it when they can chew things. You'll help to prevent toxins from going and accumulating into them. And that really just binds it, like, you know, and then they can excrete it through their poop, and they'll have green poop, and you'll have some green poop. And so then you can carry that on to just eating as many green things as possible, of course, right? Because we don't know that like folic acid absorbs. For everybody, methylated folate would probably be best, but some of us don't even do great with methylated folate. So if you have a whole plate full of greens, then you're getting them, right? And the exercise routine, that can come in after too. You never have to listen to, oh, if you haven't started exercising, don't start in pregnancy. Well, that's not true. Start, because I've always heard from people who get super nauseous that they're like, well, if I at least can get my workout in, my nausea is better, right? So that must say a lot that the body is working at an optimal level if they're getting a workout. And don't even be overwhelmed. 5-minute workout, that would be fine. Wall push-ups, those are okay. You know, don't even think like it has to look perfect. Are you moving your body? Are you doing squats? You know, it could just be that. So those things would be important. Making sure that there's no sugar in your diet. When you're feeling so weak and your nausea, you're like, oh, I think I'll just eat whatever because it sounds good. Well, trying to make sure that the integrity of your microbiome is optimal, because if it is, you won't tear so much or maybe at all when you stretch to deliver that baby. You don't want candida in your gut or in your baby. And everything that we do when we're pregnant translates into the microbiome of our child. So we want a child who sleeps well. Then we got to sleep awesome when we're pregnant. We got to figure out, if we're not, talk to a naturopath, talk to your midwife. Ideally, your naturopath. That's why I became a naturopath, because I'm not sure your midwife, if they're not a naturopath, would know what's the best way to get your adrenals healed while you're pregnant. What herbs are safe, what herbs are not safe. You know, but if you have an adrenal deficient mom, you'll have an adrenal deficient baby, and then that first year you'll have that story, like maybe some of your friends have, oh, is that baby never slept? That's not true. Babies do sleep if you help them ahead of time. Help yourself sleep so that your baby sleeps when it's born.
So would you say, are there, I mean, you don't have to name them all off, but are there plenty of herbs and, you know, nutrients that you find that are completely safe in pregnancy?
Definitely, there are, and there are some that aren't, but I even walk the line as to, you got to be careful. You can Google search, for example, is licorice safe in pregnancy? And it'll say absolutely not. Well, absolutely not if you tend towards high blood pressure, but if you're a low blood pressure gal, I find that licorice helps you not faint so much or feel nauseous so much when you're pregnant, you know? So that's actually a really good herb for you. But, you know, it's going to be specifically dialed in per person. And really doing your homework on who's prescribing to you, because if they're not really legally allowed to diagnose and treat, then you should seek out a professional that is and that knows. Because, you know, even yesterday I was on the phone with a nurse practitioner who called me because one of the moms I delivered went in for its shots, or just to talk about those, right? And I don't always I have every camp going on. And so I was this was rare. So I took this call and I was like, what an opportunity to make friends. The we don't have the most wonderful hospital here for alternative care. They're very anti, so it's a hostile type environment. And I figure I love the challenge of like, let's educate, right? That's why I'm a naturopathic doctor. So I said to her, she says, well, do you run like GBS strep on your patients, you know, when they're in maternity care? And I said, oh yeah, group beta strep. It's at 36 weeks. And that's usually when I do the swab, and it's great to have that come out negative. And I said, you know what? I run it just so I can prove that I can make sure it comes out negative every time. And this is something I started to think about back in medical school. So back at Bastyr, I remember them bringing up this topic and saying, group beta strep, you have to give antibiotics every 4 hours in labor. That's the protocol. You know, it was called pharmacology, midwifery pharmacology. And our favorite teacher ever taught it. And we knew the protocol. We knew what to write for the test, for the exam, and to get our board exam passed and all that. Then things have changed when you're in practice, right? You realize, oh, what I wrote on the exam isn't necessarily what I really believe. And I always thought then, and I even raised my hand in class and they shot me down. I'm like, why don't we just change the microbiome? And then people won't be positive group beta strep, right? And they're like, no, that doesn't work. It's a knows everybody, if they've got it, they're carriers, they don't really are symptomatic, like that's not going to work. I'm like, no, I know it's going to work. So in practice, I started realizing, hey, I noticed the people who are group beta strep positive are usually the ones who eat dairy and eat a conventional diet. And if I take silly things like dairy out of their diet and say, hey, how about no dairy when you're pregnant? Nobody likes that. But I tell them that anyway. And I say, hey, let's just see how we could just fine tune that microbiome. Just eat as many just because it'll take, I say to this to help them feel better. I'm like, it's just going to take up room in your belly and you're going to be satisfied. And then you're going to eat less vegetables, right? If you gave a kid a yogurt or like a salad, what's the kid going to eat? The kid's going to eat the yogurt, right? But don't be a kid. You're grown up now. So eat your salad. Don't buy the yogurt. And then let's see, what if you take a probiotic? And what if there's a probiotic that's specific for the group beta strep strain, right? So we can get rid of that one. And there's more probiotic of, you know, this. So it's a Lactobacillus reuteri. Yeah. Right. So we have more Lactobacillus, and then the group beta can't exist. At 36 weeks, we take the test and it's 0 every time. And I told this nurse practitioner that, and she was like, wow, really? And I was like, see, I can work with these people. I can get them to believe a little bit on this side. And to answer your question earlier, I bring the oxygen. I bring 8 different forms of anti-hemorrhagics. I buy the ones that are $800 a case, and you need 1 glass vial, and you need a license to be able to get that. But I lose it in people's refrigerators more than I ever use it. Because if you can prep the person in pregnancy not to have a bleed, by remineralizing them like crazy, making sure they have herbs such as like a tea of like oat straw and alfalfa and raspberry leaf and nettles, and you know, you're putting all these really mineral rich, highly absorbable herbs into a tea, and these people are drinking all day long, not just the day before they give birth, but their whole pregnancy, you know, 2nd trimester until the day that they give birth. I learned this also, you know, from the midwives that have done this for hundreds of years before me, and the people don't bleed, you know? So how can we give them an awesome diet? Like make sure they're getting all their nutrients, plenty of protein, like with twins, 30 grams of protein each meal, like just doing your best to really, you're eating it's like you're training, you know, you're eating for a big event, and you're training your body for a big event. You're training your brain and your soul. You're connecting with whoever that divine is for. That's the highest level of healing. You know, Dietrich Klinghardt, I did a residency with, and that's the 5th level of healing. The highest one is your connection with I think the Holy Spirit, right? Whoever that is for people, just get there, talk to him, talk to that connection, create that for you, so that when you're ready and you need to hear back, what do? I'm scared. Don't worry, don't be afraid. You got this. You hear it back in your heart, you hear it in your soul, and then the people in your mind and the people around you believe in you. And then your baby pops out. I mean, that's how it works. Yeah, that's good. And that's how it is. It's not more complicated than that. It's not. And if it is, then your midwife is trained to do that. One of the, I have a story recently, and so, you know, I think there was one of your questions where you asked, like, what would be the most important job of a midwife, right? Like, people can have an unassisted birth. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think my job as a midwife is to get them to the knowledge level of someone who's ready to go ahead and have this baby at home by themselves with their husband.
Wow.
If they are that, think about it. If you're preparing, let's say it was the end of the world. I say that some people, I'm like, it's the end of the world. There's no doctors available. You have to have this baby at home. Let's prepare you so that you have everything you need to know about to have this baby at home.
Yeah.
Right? So now you can do that without a midwife. Now, where does a midwife come in? And a midwife comes in, besides, educating you during that process of pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
A midwife comes in to deal with the things you couldn't deal with if you were all by yourself with just your husband. So a hemorrhage, right? Or maybe a stuck baby. Those are two things,
Gotcha.
right? And so I recently had those things like within the past 6 months, right? So I have this one mom, and this is her 5th baby. And it's the first one where her midwife's allowing all her kids to be there, right? So she's got all her kids there. Like they range from like 2 years old to 11 years old. And of course, the 11-year-old's like, Mom, now she starts labor, her water breaks unreasonably early. We didn't even really know. She kind of looks back and was like, I think it was almost like a week that my water was broken. Now that's weird. She was thinking maybe a trickle, like who knows what it was. We never really saw a gush and a pop until the mom was in the labor tub in labor. So maybe you were mine, but either way, there could have been a slow leak, right? And I wonder if it was all her kids around her and the pressure of it all, but her labor never could get going. It just seemed like it just never got really full throttle, right? But the 2-year-old's like, Mom, I want a nurse. And the 11-year-old's like, Mom, how dilated are you? And they're running around the house, like following her in labor, just asking her all these questions. And she's probably just like, I really wanted my kids here, but just not now. Put them in a room and shut the door. Beep. And so eventually she got inward in her labor, and she got it finally strong enough. And she told me, like, 9 months ahead of time, hey, I do bleed. My last midwife made sure none of the kids could be in the room, and she kind of freaked out when I bled. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, what are we going to do differently for this, Mom? Well, we're going to make sure all her kids could be there to see it happen, and I'm not going to freak out if she bleeds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got that in my head. I didn't even write it on paper. I just kind of knew that's how it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
So she has her baby on her bed, and she's filming it. She has a photographer. People are really cool these days. They hire full photography. It's amazing. And definitely, like, you ever go to get at a water fountain when you're a kid, and it's like the water fountain doesn't go up high enough, but it's just kind of, well, that's kind of what the bleeding looked like. And I was like, oh, there it is, the bleeding. I was expecting that. So, I used some medicine. It started again later, and not too much later, but a couple of minutes later. And I used that special one I tell you, it's called Methergin. I keep it in the fridge, and you need a license in order to get it. So that's why it's nice to have a midwife who's licensed, or a doctor, be at your birth. So anyway, it works like a charm. Uh-huh. She had low blood pressure anyway, so it matched the description, and it worked like a charm. And we controlled it, and she was like, wow, you did that so calm. Did I really have a bleed? I'm like, oh yeah, it was quite the bleed. But she's like, I feel fine. I'm like, yeah, okay, just stay down. And all her kids were there to see it, right? And so that's where I think a midwife is needed. That's where you need to hire someone who knows what they're doing, in my mind, right? Okay, so then, and the second one, recently, I had one of the longest, what we call a stuck baby, right? Like, now we all make babies big enough for our body to deliver, but maybe they could get stuck if you don't allow yourself to fully dilate. And that's where I kind of see this situation. And so she was feeling almost dilated, and I checked, and she was almost. But she kept saying, I need to push. I just need to. I'm like, no, you can't, because you're not dilated yet. Yeah. She's like, but I have to, or I want to go to the hospital. She's like, if I can't just push into that sensation, I don't want to be here anymore. And I was like, oh no, this isn't working. So I manually tried to get the cervix out of the way with my finger while she pushed. And we worked on this for a while. And we did a lot of the Gail Tully's spinning babies techniques. Gail Tully is an incredible resource for helping the baby get in alignment to help the baby out. Okay, so we were all determined we're getting this baby out, and I had a feeling in my head, wow, this is a tough nudge. But here we go. Finally, we see hair, and the head comes out. And then I'm like, okay, the head's out. Just wait for it. Here comes the shoulders. But they didn't really come. So that's when it's so nice to have an assistant, because she starts writing it all down. And we know where the time is, because time can seem weird when you're in these moments, right? It can seem like forever when it's only like 5 minutes. It seems like an hour, right? And so I we get the baby out eventually, and the baby wasn't yet ready for, vibration and tone and strength and breathing. And I looked at the baby and I gave it some breaths, and I put it on the mom's chest, and the mom says, Dr. Michele is who I picked for you. And I'm going to try and say stop crying. And she says, and I picked her because she's the very best at this, and she's going to help you. And I know she will. And like, mind you, this is her first baby and it's not yet breathing, and it's kind of been a while.
Wow.
And the baby is connected to the cord, and the cord is connected to the placenta, right? So this is very important in both of these cases, the hemorrhage one and this one. Very important detail.
Mm-hmm.
It means the baby's still getting perfused. It's still getting breath. They don't do this at the hospital. The hospital does not leave the cord attached for longer than 30 seconds. This is what they're missing, besides the probiotics. These are two things I wish the hospital would get. Okay, so the baby now, it goes on about 9 minutes from birth till when it breathes, and that's 7 to 9, if we count. So 9 from total, but 7 once the head was out. Okay, so it breathes, right? And everything's great. And it goes from being the worst moment of my life, where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. To the best moment of my life. And in that moment of transition, the best part is the mom, right? The dad's crying. Like, God bless dads. I love how they really show it all at birth. I'm so privileged to be there for that. But he's in the corner just like crying. And so she's basically just with me and the baby. And mom's like, I know that Dr. Michelle's going to do everything for you, and you're going to be fine because I picked her. I picked her the best for you. And so that was what I would love every midwife to know, and everyone seeking a midwife. Find the best, because you deserve the best. I think you all deserve to have a baby at home. That's the best care.
Yeah.
I think, because it's what drives me to wake up every morning and do my job, right? And so the best care is because it's one-on-one. It's you with someone who loves you.
Yeah.
Who really is like they're putting all of their life on hold because they love their life, and it's pretty cool. But it's kind of the same measure as how much they love you, because they'd rather not be with their family right now and be here with you, because of the fact that they can help you have a baby in a way that you deserve the very best way to hold this baby. Right? And I don't know if you can get that in the hospital.
Yeah.
You can, maybe if you show up there last minute with the head crowning, you can probably get that in the hospital. But then even in our hospital here, they do take the baby away. Even if it was a perfect birth, there's a time where they take it away from you.
Wow.
Yeah, Maui Memorial Hospital, they take the baby away from you. So they let you have it for a minute, and then they take it away. And then depending on how they see fit, they either take it away for a long time, or they'll put it in a little, they'll room it with you in a little plastic case, but they won't let you cuddle it and sleep with it that night, right? And I love putting babies on moms and dads and being like, good night, you go to sleep with this baby on your chest, because why should this baby not listen to your heartbeat all night? It's first night at home, right? And why should it not be in your home this first night here?
Yeah.
And why should it not hear its dad's voice? And why should it not hear its siblings' voices? Like, they should, I think it's so important we respect these babies. They deserve to not feel like, oh no, what just happened? Where am I? Why is everything quiet? Why is no one touching me? What happened? One minute I was with my mom and I heard all these noises, and now there's nobody holding me.
Wow.
That's
big time.
It's big. That's it. So that's what it's for. I think we can do this, and it's normal, way more normal. And thank God that not everybody wants it, because there's not enough midwives for everybody to have one. But if you know it's what you want as much as I know it's what I want, then you should have it. Everybody should be allowed to have it.
Totally. That's good. That's super good. So it sounds like, Michele, like Dr. Michele, the number one thing really is like preparedness. I mean, that like the thing, if you prepare the woman, prepare the man, prepare the couple to have a baby at home with a midwife, then they just be ultra confident that the natural process is going to carry out as the natural process should carry out, because they prepared themselves. That seems like over and over again, you're using that, the preparation. That's huge.
Huge.
I do remember our first child that we had in a hospital, Evergreen in Kirkland, Washington. It's crazy, but 9 years ago.
Still a good hospital though.
It is a good hospital. No, it's definitely
compared to the ones here.
The yeah, I remember, I don't think there was any, thankfully my wife, Alma is just a rock star, but and she does a lot to prepare herself for everything. But there was no, outside of you going and getting your own information, looking online, going to the library, getting books kind of stuff. There really was no preparation other than show up for these things, do your glucose tests, we'll draw your blood, halfway through to check a CBC, and look for HIV and, all that kind of stuff. But there really was no preparation. There's no food support. There was no what you could do to prepare, your like you're saying, your connective tissues. It was just okay, yeah, when you're for sure gonna have the baby, then you can come show up at the hospital, and we'll we'll do the rest kind of thing, and we'll stick all these things on you and essentially make you really really uncomfortable, but ask you to relax, breathe through it, wait till the doctor is available. So then you can start pushing when he or she comes in, whoever's on call that night kind of thing. So I think it's what you're doing is huge. It's huge service. And it just makes everybody's life so much simpler in the end, even though I think in the middle of, I think of our home births, there's some level of, it's our responsibility. Mm-hmm. I suppose you go to the hospital, you're going to get into the system, which of course we need those places, but it's you're giving the responsibility to the whole birthing process over to the nurse that's present, or the doctor, or the system in general, as opposed to taking on the full responsibility of this thing you basically created by coming together, and saying, you know what, yeah, this is a completely natural process. So it's super exciting what you're doing.
It's true. Awesome. And really, it resonates so much with our backgrounds as physicians, because as naturopathic physicians, we really are asking our patients to take responsibility, right? They come in and we could see right away, okay, 2-year-old's covered in eczema, I know what to do. Right. I can make this kid look brand new again, but that we ask the mother, are you ready to do this? Mm-hmm. Is your husband or whoever you live with ready to support you in all the things you do to create this to happen? Because he can't just go buy whatever he wants at the grocery store and bring it home and expect this child's eczema to go away. So true. It's so much education. We educate them for what, an hour? We sit in our naturopathic visits, and that's really what I do as a midwife too. An hour, and we go over, and I'm okay, do you need an appointment in 2 weeks, 4 weeks? Do we need to see each other again next week? How many hours are we going to put in? People would ask me, how many prenatal visits do I get? And a lot of times these days, I just say as many as it takes, as many times as it takes for you to feel ready. That's for good. This. Super good. And even then I wondered, there are occasions when I just had one recently, right? And the mom's very unhappy with me, and she Instagrams and everything. And so that's hard, but I missed her birth by 5 minutes because I ran back home for the that special vial of hemorrhage medicine, because she had told me she hemorrhages. So I get there, my assistant gets there in time. It's her first baby catch. I love my assistant so much, and I feel like, I've never been able to let her catch the baby yet because she's my assistant. So this was her only way of getting it, which is great. Yeah. The baby falls out in a 2-hour labor. This woman's 6th child, but her first baby at home.
Wow.
And really, when I look back, our prenatal visits were a lot of laughing and a lot of excited, but not the honesty of, my friend had a home birth and I filmed it. So now I want to have a home birth because it looked really cool. I want to do it too because my friend does it and she has so much fun. But did she dig deep into, well, I've had epidurals all the other 5 times, and I've had Pitocin all the other 5 times, and my doctor pulls my placenta out. I don't push it out. So I'm not sure what to expect. And I should have dug deeper into, wait, not everybody's doing their homework. I thought they were, and you can't assume, right? But anyway, she has this fast birth, and I think to myself, you just did a birth all by yourself, and she's holding her baby on her chest when I walk in, and I deliver the placenta, and I manage her bleeding, and I sew her a bit, and I think, wow, I'm sad I missed it, so sad, but this was the best birth that just happened in less than 2 hours. And she's like, it happened so fast. I'm like, I can tell you're stunned.
Oh man,
you did it, And she was, in the end, she's like, be careful who you choose as a midwife. She's like, because this is not what I wanted. And I'm like, oh man, If she only knew how hard that is for me to hear, because I wanted her to want it, but it's not for everybody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, some of us have been ingrained in the rhetoric a little longer than others. Some of us have broke free from it. I've met people who are second generation home births, and I'm so excited I haven't met someone who's a second generation home birth, but her first one was a cesarean because she went into labor at like 24 weeks or something happened early, right? So she has this 3-pound baby first time, NICU, everything. But she's like, but wait, my mom had me at home. So I'm going back to that. And then she has her baby and she's like, it's twice as big as my first baby. And I had it at home, and I had it at home in a way that it came out of my body and my scar didn't come apart. No, because there's pretty much just as much a risk as if you get a second cesarean. It's more risky than thinking if your scar is going to come apart. There's signs. Another time where you want a trained midwife, because if your scar is going to come apart, there's some signs where you hear from the mother something different. Oh, I have pain. Okay, we're going to go to the hospital because that's not normal, right? But you want someone trained to be there for you and to offer you an option, right? Because here, there's absolutely no option. If you want to have your baby after a cesarean, you go schedule your C-section. If you want to have twins, you go schedule your C-section. If you want a breech baby, the other day we had a breech baby, and this woman was 35 weeks, and she's going into labor after a Costco run and after a 5-mile run that morning.
Whoa.
And I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to keep that baby in. And I share her office. She's an amazing counselor. She's a Christian counselor for families. And so she's like, I'll try. I'm like, you try by lying down. And so was she up making her kids food? Because she had 3 other kids. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what kept the labor going. Her husband didn't step up and make her kids food. She's up making food. And she shouldn't be laying down because her labor was coming too early. So we got to stay in for 3 more days. And now she's still technically early. She's like, would you make me go to Oahu for this? Because it's kind of an early baby. And I'm like, well, not if you don't want to go. You know, this is all your choice. And I think if we did kangaroo care at home, if the baby was too little, but it seemed like a big baby. So it wound up being a 5-pound, 8-ounce baby, which is a pretty substantial baby. And we watched it very closely because it was early. But the best part of the story is they're like, well, we've had 4 other, was it 3? I think it was 3 other hospital births. And they break my wife's water every time. This is cool because it's a pastor and his wife, right? So I know they have the faith. And so Dr. Michele, you need to break her water. She's just going to be in labor forever. And I thought to myself, well, that's okay, because then that's 1 more day that baby stays in and we can say it's not so early, right? And so I'm like, well, let me see how many centimeters she is. And oh, well, you're 8 centimeters. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm telling you, she's going to be in labor forever until you break that water. And I said, well, here's the reason why you don't want to break the water is I feel what feels like a mohawk of a head, like a head that's like a rectangle. And that must not be a head. Those are 2 feet. I feel 2 feet jumping in. And they're like, oh, 2 feet. And the dad looks at me and he's like, it was great. I could see him talking to God right then. I'm like, well, he's a pastor. What does he do? Right. And he's like, well, can you do that at home? Or can we have a breech baby at home? And the mom's like, I'm like, well, what do you want to do, Mom? And she's like, well, I want to have this baby. I'm like, well, good, because it's coming. But we're not going to break the water because it is the water that's dilating her. It's like a balloon, right? And it's full. The 2 feet would just make a 2 feet mark, right? But the water is round, right? So she gets in the tub and she starts to push, and here come the feet. And she reaches down and she says, it is a boy, right? So she knows before anybody else because she can feel it and we can't see anything because she's in the water. Okay. And then I did a little counter pressure to help the head deliver through the rectum, and it came out backwards and upside down. Not really the way the breeches usually come out the other way, but just popped right out. And how to come out, because people had faith, I think, in the process. We pulled it together. There was no time to transfer it and get on our plane. And the baby was coming. There was nothing stopping that train. Just like her 5-mile, run. There was no stopping her then. You couldn't tell her on Monday, okay, don't go for a run because it's going to send you into early labor. She probably still would have been like, but it probably won't. I need to run, And so that kind of was what happening in her labor. She's like, I need to push. I'm getting this baby out. And she held her baby jumped 2 feet in the pool. And I think that was also great. And I had a lot of extensive training in breech delivery since the day I was in school. They were like, oh, here's the reasons for a necessary C-section, twins, breeches. I'm like, wait, that's not a necessary C-section. Oh, just write it down for the test, So you do. And then you learn from people like Suzanne Thompson and Rixa Freeze, these people who do Breach Without Borders,
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Fishbein, all these leaders that are saying, wait, this is just as this is normal variation. How can we
Mm-hmm.
look at birth as a normal variation when it's not actually fitting normal in the textbook? Because is it major abdominal surgery normal?
Mm.
No. It's amazing. Don't get me wrong. An incision this big and they pull the whole baby out and it could heal and then a baby can come through the vagina a couple of years later. Like, it's a miracle. The body is resilient. If you have to have a C-section, you will survive. You will get through it and you will move on. But what if you don't? What if there's a chance that you don't? Or what if you have a chance for redemption? Redemption births are the best ones, you know, like the women who had, amazing things happen after that relief of like, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to give those families that feeling of, we did this.
Yeah, that's good.
Because now they can go through parenting with that information. They can parent. Parenting's gonna be so much harder than childbirth. So they might as well get through the natural childbirth first.
That's great. All right, Michele. So what is the best way, say if a woman is in Maui, or a couple's in Maui, like, man, we want to have a home birth and we want to connect with you, or maybe they want to, do you ever do like things where, you know, people are in other places and they just want to, you know, consult with you about preparing for birth and that kind of stuff?
Definitely.
What's like the best way for people to connect with you or contact you?
They can always reach me in my email, which is super simple. And it's just drsayball@gmail.com. So DR, and my last name is SAYBALL @gmail.com.
Great. And we'll have that information right along with this video in the comments. Because yeah, Dr. Sayball, Dr. Michele Sayball, she is the jam and she knows what she's doing. So if you have any questions, you need any support, man, yeah, definitely get a consult with her, and just allow the opportunity for essentially the best. Because the only thing we can ever do as physicians really is create the opportunity. You know, nobody knows. Everything is essentially the first time. No matter if it's eczema or if it's giving birth, it's all the first time because everybody's individual human. So, but you can there's definitely people that can create a whole lot more opportunity for you, or there's a lot of wisdom and experience that can create a whole lot more opportunity for a person to experience the most efficient recovery, the best outcomes related to, especially in her case, the birthing process. So definitely check her out. Anything else you wanted to mention to people before we cut off here, Michele? Dr. Michele?
I just want to mention, quite honestly though, there are a few products that I use as a midwife, and I've tried many in the past, right? And I do like there's specific prenatals that I would recommend, it's called like the prenatal sap. I forget what brand it is, but it's prenatal sap, SAP. You could probably get it. You can look it up online. Nutrients for Health or something like that. But I just want to mention that iron deficiency anemia is a big deal in pregnancy. And back when I had it with my first kid, they were experimenting on injections of liver or iron or whatever, and they never really found that even IV iron was as good as oral iron. I mean, iron that's oral is so hard to digest. It's like eating a cast iron pan. Like it's hard. It's gonna hurt, and it's gonna hurt your belly and feel like there's little rocks in there, and your stools are gonna come out off. And so, besides using ferrous forms of iron, which is what was traditionally been used, I came across this product by Dr. Holness, which is called Blood Vitality. And I tell people all the time about Blood Vitality because it's a rice protein chelate. So around here is Maui, everybody's vegan, right? So you don't want to mess with their veganism. And if you can help their iron go up, well, the vegans, usually some of them, not all of them, are anemic. And why not help them have, no midwife that I know of, like especially the OBs, they don't check ferritin. It always bothered me since graduation. Why not check ferritin? Don't you want to know the storage form so that when you're using that pool that's going into your hematocrit and hemoglobin, like, we expect the hemodilution to happen, right? You're going to have 40% more blood volume when you're pregnant, and it's going to be like Tropicana orange juice just got diluted, right? So it's not so potent anymore. So then you just beef up your nutrients, right? And how about postpartum? You lose some blood, that's okay. But some people have a hard recovery, and you bring back those nutrients. And so I love the blood vitality for that. Sometimes I tell people take it. They're like, when do I take it? I'm like, take it on the day you're tired, or take it that next day too. See if
Yeah.
you notice a difference. Do that thing where you take it a couple of days, don't take it a couple, to see how much you notice that difference. And they notice a difference. And they're like, no, I take this every day. I have this mom who has 6 kids, and she's on this vegan drain, which I can't get her off of, but she swears it's what got her home birth. I helped her have a home birth at her 4 C-sections, 1 vaginal delivery in between those 2, and she had a home birth on her 6th boy.
Oh my goodness.
So cool though, so amazing. And she's like, how do I get back my strength? And I'm like, well, you need to start eating more variety foods. And she's like, I love my vegan foods. And I'm like, okay, you can, but how about you take this? And she's like, is it vegan? I'm like, by the way, it is. And so she takes the blood vitality. She's coming in today. She just keeps repleting the stores, and she doesn't mind for her diet choices to just stay on it, right? But a lot of people who have a varied diet and who do eat meat and have great gut flora, they actually don't stay on it. They take it just enough to get their ferritin robust. I love, if people are trying for preconception care, get your ferritin at 50. Use blood vitality to get your ferritin at 50 and then get pregnant. Then you're going to have a much happier pregnancy, you know, and your tissues are going to be strong and they're not going to tear. That all has everything to do with it. Nutrients are so important. So that's all. That's the last bit, but I just had to say it, Matt, and not just because it's you, because if it wasn't you, I would tell anybody on this topic. It's an incredible product, and
cool.
and it works.
All right. That's awesome, man. Thanks so much, Doc.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe we'll check in again with Dr. Michele. She's got so much wisdom. It's just over the top.